Hello students, today we are going to read a poem by Carolyn Wells. The name of the poem is How to Tell Wild Animals. This is a very humorous poem about wild animals. It is humorous because the very fact that the poet is advising us or the poet is guiding us how to identify a wild animal seems funny, because from our very childhood we have been taught to identify animals. We know what is a lion, we know what is a tiger, we know what is a leopard, we know what is a chameleon, we know what is a crocodile, a hyena. But still the poet, in her own unique and humorous way, is trying to explain to us and to distinguish between one one wild animal from the other. So first I will read the poem out to you, I will explain the poem to you, and later on I will give you the poetic devices. I will give you just a few poetic devices because the poem has a lot of poetic devices in almost every paragraph. But I would like you all to identify the poetic devices by your own, because I feel that you are capable enough to do at least that much. So let's start the poem How to Tell Wild Animals by Carolyn Wells. If ever you should go by chance to jungles in the east, and if there should to you advance a large and twanny beast, if he roars at you as you are dying, you'll know it is the ancient lion. Here, in the first stanza, the poet, in a very humorous way, she tells us that if by chance you happen to travel to the east, what is she referring to? The east means coming to India. India was famous as the rich country in the east. Many European travelers wanted to come to India to trade in India. If you know, if you have read in history, the East India Company, the term East here signifies coming to India. If ever you should go by chance to jungles in the east, and if there should to you advance a large and twanny beast. So, which jungle is the poet referring to? Which jungle is Carolyn Wells referring to? She is referring to the Gir forest of India, the Gir forest of Gujarat. A large and twanny beast. What does twanny means? The twanny means a yellowish brown colored beast. How she describes the lion? She is not describing the lion by its mane, which is the main feature of the lion. The lion is identified by the long flowing mane that it has. But here she is more contrasting it with the brown color, yellowish brown color, a large and twanny beast. If he roars at you as you are dying, you'll know it is the ancient lion. The roar of the lion is so ferocious that she expects you to die. And as you are dying, here dying, D-Y-I-N, is the short form for dying. She says, as you are dying, you can identify that the cause of your death is because of the shock that you received when the lion was roaring so loud. If he roars at you as you are dying, you'll know it is the ancient lion. The lion will roar so loudly, so loud that the mere roar of the lion will make you die. And then you can understand that the beast that you saw, that the wild animal that you saw, is a lion. So isn't it funny that to identify a lion we have to die? In the second stanza, she says, or if sometime when roaming round, a noble wild beast greets you with black stripes on a yellow ground, just notice if he eats you. This simple rule may help you learn the Bengal tiger to discern. Simple rule. The poet further says that, or if sometime when roaming around means as if you are casually walking. What does she want to tell us about India? That India is full of wild animals. That was the misconception of most of the European. Most of the European believed that India is a land of magic, magical chants, of magicians, of flying carpets, of that the famous rope trick, of scorpions, of tigers and lions, of insects. Apart from India being very rich, where every person has gold, India was referred to as Sone ki chidiya, the gold, a golden bird. Apart from that, Europeans believe that India is full of jungles, and perhaps India was covered with dense vegetation before the arrival of the Britishers. We had dense deciduous forests. So here she says, or if sometime when roaming around, just casual walk after Gujarat, when you just roam around, you'll come across a noble wild beast. She is referring to the tiger as a royal tiger. Perhaps she's talking the Royal Bengal tiger. That is why the Royal Bengal tiger has got its name, because of the beautiful coat that it has. A brownish, yellowish, reddish background with bright black stripes. So she refers to the tiger as a noble beast, as a royal beast. Or if sometime when roaming around, a noble wild beast greets you. A noble wild beast, what? The wild beast is greeting you? Do you expect being greeted, being invited by a wild beast? What she means here, you come across a wild beast with black stripes on a yellow ground. When she says yellow ground, she's actually meaning the background. The background of the coat, the yellow coat of the tiger on which the black stripes are there. With black stripes on a yellow ground, just notice if he eats you. What a simple way to identify a tiger. Just notice if it eats you. This simple rule may help you learn the Bengal tiger to discern. A very simple way to identify the Bengal tiger. That is what the poet feels. Okay, so the poet in a very humorous way says, if the tiger eats you, then you know that you have been eaten by a tiger. If you die by the roar of a lion, before you die, you can understand while you are dying that the beast that was roaring is a lion. So the extremes are being told in such a funny way. The third paragraph, Carolyn Wells says, if strolling forth a beast you view, whose hide with spot is peppered, as soon as he has leapt on you, you'll know it is the leopard. It will do no good to roar with pain, he'll only leap and leap again. See the misspelling that is used here in leapt and in leap. How do you spell leapt? L-E-A-P-T is leapt. And again, look at the spelling of leap. The poet is just writing L-E-P. This is a poetic device known as poetic license. The poetic device used here is a poetic license. The poets are given the freedom to misspell certain words for the sake of rhyme, for the sake of rhythm. The poet purposely misspells words. Here the poet Carolyn has misspelt leapt, and misspelt leap. In strolling forth, a beast you view. If strolling forth, as if you are walking in a garden, you are walking in a jungle. So in a jungle, we don't stroll. But here the poet, in a very funny way, in a very humorous way, says that if strolling forth, a beast you view, whose hide with spot is peppered. Hide meaning to say skin. Spots with peppered. Peppered means scattered with spots. Sprayed with spots here and there. In a very unrhythmic way. There is no proper rhythm or there is no alignment of the spots. The spots are just scattered. When you scatter pepper, kali mirch, they just go anywhere. So also a leopard spot are not uniform. Some are big, some are small, and they are not spread uniformly. So she says, if strolling forth a beast you view, whose hide with spots is peppered, as soon as he has leapt on you, you'll know it is the leopard. You do not identify the leopard by its spot. What she means to say, in fact, there's a very famous phrase, a very famous adage. A leopard is known by its spots. But she says you will identify the leopard only if the leopard leaps at you. Until and unless that beast leaps on you, it's not a leopard. Only if the beast leaps at you, then only the beast is a leopard. It will do no good to roar with pain, he'll only leap and leap again. It'll TWIL, it will, short form for it will. It will do no good to roar with pain, he'll only leap and leap again. Okay, so you cannot rescue yourself from the leopard. Once the leopard pounces on you, even if you try to fight back, if you try to run away from the leopard, it won't help you. In the fourth stanza, the poet's view about a bear. A bear is not as cuddly, is not as lovely as the poet is describing it in the stanza. This is personally the poet's view about a bear. In fact, a bear is very ferocious. The moment it sees a human, it will not hug him. In fact, it will, maul him down. Maul the human down with his paws. Scratch his face. Crack open his head and eat off the brain. The bear is a very ferocious animal. But here the poet is describing such a ferocious animal as a cuddly teddy bear. The misconception of the teddy bear. We have teddy bear toys. But the bear is not a cuddly creature. But here, see how the poet describes the bear. If when you are walking around your yard, you meet a creature there who hugs you very, very hard, be sure it is a bear. If you have any doubts, I guess, he'll give you just one more caress. See how she describes the bear as someone who's very loving. प्यार की झप्पी देना. To hug is to cuddle you, is to hold you tight when you meet your best friend after many, 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 many days. How you greet one another by cuddling them hard. So here the poet is trying to describe the bear as a very loving creature. That is the poet's personal view. That's the poet's personal opinion. I don't think a bear is so cuddly. I don't think the bear will greet you that way if at all you come across a bear. So whenever you go for a safari, don't just jump out of a gypsy when you see a bear and try and go, hi teddy bear, my lovely bear, and try to cuddle it. He'll be very happy to see you because you are his meal now. You will become that bear's meal. If when you are walking around your yard, Yard is a garden. What the poet is trying to say, that the bears are so common in India that they walk into your yards, they walk into your garden. If when you're walking around your yard, you meet a creature there who hugs you very, very hard, be sure it is a bear. If you have any doubts, I guess he'll give you just one more caress. Caress, gentle touches. Gentle touches are called caress. Here, the bear has at least 3 to 4 inch long nails, talons, such huge nails, and you expect that bear to caress you with those nails? Imagine what he'll do to your skin with such long 2 to 3 inch long nails. Definitely it will not caress you. But the poet's view, the poet's humor is seen here. The poet is actually acting very punny. The poet doesn't really mean that the bear is going to caress you, it is going to scratch you, it's going to maul you down. That is what the poet is trying to tell us in the fourth stanza. Then we move on to the next stanza. Here the poet describes two different wild creatures, wild beasts. Though to distinguish beast of prey or novice might non-pulse, the crocodile you always may tell from the hyena thus. Hyenas come with merry smiles, but if they weep, they are crocodiles. Again, here the poet is saying that though to distinguish beast of prey, the tiger, the lion, the leopard, the bear, these are all beasts of prey. They hunt animals, they kill animals for their food. Animals which kill other animals for food are called as beast of prey. So here the poet is saying that you can easily identify the beast of prey. Though to distinguish beast of prey, a novice might non-pulse. Okay, or novice. Who is a novice? A beginner. A beginner may be surprised how to identify the beast of prey. But to identify a hyena and a crocodile, it is very easy, she says. You might get confused. A novice, a beginner will get confused to identify the beast of prey. But these beasts of prey, the hyena and the crocodile, can be easily distinguished. How? Though to distinguish beast of prey or novice might non-pulse, the crocodile you always may tell from the hyena thus. Tell means differentiate. Differentiate a crocodile from the hyena. Hyenas come with merry smile. Hyenas, they bark sounds as if they are laughing. They look like dogs. They look like wolves. The wolves will howl. The dogs will bark, bite. But a hyena, it laughs. The barking sound of the hyena is that of a laughter. If you hear a hyena in the dark, in the jungle, you'll think that some ghost is laughing at you. You can only see the shining eyes and you can hear the laughing noise of the hyenas. So the poet says that you can easily identify, you can easily distinguish a hyena from a crocodile. The hyenas will come with a merry smile, a happy smile, but if they weep, they are crocodile. The crocodile's eyes are always watering. There's always water in the eyes of a crocodile. That's how we can identify a crocodile, he says. The crocodiles are the ones who are weeping, who are crying, shedding tears. The true chameleon is small, a lizard sort of thing. He hasn't any ears at all and not a single wing. If there is nothing on the tree, is the chameleon you see. Now in the last stanza, the poet is talking about a chameleon. A chameleon is known to camouflage itself according to its surrounding. If it's among green foliage, if it's among green leaves, the chameleon will camouflage into green, changes color into the green according to its background. If it's on a brown branch, it will camouflage into a brown branch, and you will not be able to see the chameleon. You will not be able to see the chameleon in the green leaves because it's turned green. If on the branch, brown branch, it will turn brown. That is why the poet says the true chameleon is small, a lizard sort of thing. It looks like a lizard. The chameleon looks like a lizard. He hasn't any ears at all. The chameleon has no ears and not a single wing. Neither does it have a wing. If there is nothing on a tree, what he means by nothing, that means the chameleon has managed to camouflage itself, to hide itself, and you feel that there is nothing on the tree, but actually there is a chameleon there. It's the chameleon you see. So don't get confused. Nothing on the tree and you see a chameleon. So the poet what means to say that the chameleon has camouflaged itself. So in this way, Karen Wells has brought out 7 different wild animals with its distinctive features in a very humorous, in a very funny way. Now to proceed towards the poetic device that is used by the poet here. The first thing is the rhyming scheme. What is the rhyming scheme? To pick up the rhyming scheme, we pick up the last words of each line to see whether they rhyme with one another or no. If they rhyme, they might be AA or they might be ABA. But in this case, each and every stanza has a similar rhyming scheme, and the rhyming scheme is AB, AB, C, C. How to pick up the rhyming scheme? See, the last word of the first line, it is chance. So we take this as A. The last word of the second line in the first stanza is east. Now does chance rhyme with east? Do they sound similar? No. So we give east as B. Then we see the third line, the last word is advance. Since advance is rhyming with chance, so we give advance as A. So A, B, A. Then the fourth line is beast. Beast is rhyming with east. So A, B, A, B. And then the fifth line is dine, D-Y-I-N. Dine. It is rhyming with lion. So since dine is not rhyming either with chance or with east, we give it a new alphabet. We give it C. So the rhyming scheme is A, B, A, B, C. And since dine is rhyming with lion, the last line of the last word of the last line, we give it a C. So the rhyming scheme throughout the poem, throughout all the stanzas of the poem is AB, AB, C, C. Got it? How to identify? How to pick up the rhyming scheme? Then the next poetic device which I would like to bring out here again is enjambment. Remember in the last poem I taught you about enjambment. Enjambment are lines which are written without any punctuation mark. We can see the first line followed by the second line without any punctuation mark. If ever you should go by chance to the jungles in the east, in the second line we see a semicolon. The first line has no punctuation mark. If the first line flows into the second line, it is called as enjambment. Okay, then again, and if there should to you advance a large and tiny beast, again there's an enjambment over here. So when you come across lines which move from the first line to the second line without any punctuation mark, the figure of speech used here is an enjambment. Then we also have assonance in the very first line. What are assonance? Assonance are the use of vowels. The vowel sounds A, E, I, O, U. If a lot of stress is given on the vowels sound, that line can be picked up as assonance. A-S-S-O-N-A-N-C-E. So in the first line, if ever you should go by chance. We see a lot of vowels being used here. Huh? O, U, O, U, A, E, I. I is not repeated though. O, U, O and U and A are repeated. So we have seen a lot of uses of vowels in this line. So in the other lines too, you can pick up the same figure of speech known as the assonance when vowel sounds are used. Then the third figure of speech which we can pick up in the same paragraph, in the same stanza, is inversion. Inversion, the grammatical sense of a sentence is broken here. Again, I told you, the poet has the freedom to misspell words. They also have a freedom to break the order of a sentence. A sentence is a group of words which makes complete sense, right? Here, the poet, see in the third line, he says, and if there should to you advance, and if there should. So if they advance to you, and if by chance they advance to you, that should be the correct way of writing the sentence. But the poet here is using, and if they should to you advance, to you. Here he is breaking the rule of grammar. Such a break of rule of grammar is known as inversion. Okay, so inversions are being used here. Then in the second paragraph also, there is alliteration, there is assonance. Okay, there is allusion. What is allusion? When we talk of a species and the species is represented by a single thing or single creature, that is allusion. So here in the first as well as in the second and in the third or in the entire part of the poem, allusion is being used when the poet is talking about the lion, the tiger. Asian lion, when he's talking about the lion, he's referring to the Asian lion. When he's talking about the tiger, he's referring to the Royal Bengal tiger. So we can see that the poetic device used by the poet here is allusion. Okay, so we have allusions over here. Then the poet has also made use of repeated consonants in this line, like roaming round. So that is alliteration. The figure of speech used here is alliteration, when the consonant sounds are repeated immediately one after the other in the same line. For example, or if sometimes when roaming round, row, the sound of row, the sound of the consonant sound of R is being repeated here simultaneously one after the other. It is an alliteration. So in this way you can pick up various figure of speeches throughout the poem. It's very interesting to note. It's very interesting to pick up the figure of speech, because it makes one more and more keenly interested in the poem. So I would like you all to identify the various figure of speeches used here. There are so many different kind of figure of speeches. Perhaps you'll come across some new figure of speech. So try to make use of the internet and try to find out as many figure of speech that you can pick up from this poem. They are plentiful. I tell you, they are plentiful of figure of speeches. I'm not purposely giving you all the figure of speeches, because I want to create interest in you in poems, in poetries. So today we'll stop here. I hope you have understood your poem. The poem, How to Tell Wild Animals. How to tell means how to identify the wild animals.